Welcome everyone to today's Sloan Fellows Admissions Process and Application Tips webinar. My name's Madi Clark, and I'm excited to be joined by you all wherever you're calling in from today for today's Application Tips webinar. So thanks for joining us. Today's session, we'll talk a little bit about the Sloan Fellows MBA application and talk a little bit about the program. We'll leave plenty of time for questions that you all might have throughout today's webinar. If you do have any questions, please use the Q&A function to pose those questions to myself and the rest of my team. I'm joined by a few of my colleagues who will be answering questions throughout the webinar, and then we'll save time to answer some questions live at the end. So again, thank you all for joining us, and we'll get started. Before we dive into the specifics of the Sloan Fellows MBA program, I want to talk a little bit about who we are as a school. The MIT Sloan School of Management's mission is to develop principled, innovative leaders who improve the world and to generate ideas that advance management practice. This mission is really at the heart of everything that we do within the Sloan School of Management. And if you think about the first part of our mission, developing principled, innovative leaders, that is really done through the opportunities and experiences that are available throughout our portfolio of programs. We have a number of programs offered for various points in your career, from early career programs or traditional two-year MBA, but we're here today to talk about our Sloan Fellows MBA. This is a 12-month degree that culminates in either an MBA or an MS in Management or an MS in Management of Technology. The students who pursue one of the master's programs will complete a thesis during their 12-month time. For the Sloan Fellows MBA, we look for a minimum of 10 years of experience, but folks enter the program with about 14 to 15 years of experience on average. And we'll talk a little bit about what the class looks like. Our class that just graduated this past May was 103 students. 37% of them identified as women. 77% of the class was international. Within the international folks, we had 42 countries represented. Again, about 15 years of experience when folks enter the program. And the class that just graduated, about half of them had a previous advanced degree. You'll note here that the top 3 industries that folks entered the program from were financial services, technology, government, education, and nonprofit. So as we think about the Sloan Fellows program and thinking about who is the ideal candidate, a few things kind of come to mind that we're looking for in the application and admissions process. Like I mentioned before, we're looking for a minimum of 10 years of post-bachelor's degree full-time work experience. And within that experience, we're really looking for folks who have both leadership and general management experience. And so here at Sloan, the way we define general management experience is beyond holding just a specific title. It's folks that are leading teams or leading functions, have responsibility for strategy and budget. And these experiences are really important for students to have prior to the program to be able to contribute effectively in the classroom. We're also looking for candidates who are committed to the global perspective. If you think back to just the previous slide, 42 countries were represented in our class that just graduated. Those experiences that students bring in based on geographic context that they've lived and worked is really important and helpful to enhance the experience and learning for everyone in the classroom. And so we're really looking for folks who are excited to learn from other perspectives and have their own perspective challenged by the viewpoints and experiences of others. We're looking for candidates who push the boundaries and challenge the status quo, who advocate for their ideas in their workplaces and create better environments within their organizations. The Sloan Fellows MBA program has some quantitative rigor to it, and so we're really looking for folks that have shown that they're comfortable taking on that quantitative aspect of the program. An important component that we're looking for in the application process is folks that are able to communicate effectively so that they can contribute to the classroom, but also go on to be leaders in their field after graduation. And the last piece that we're looking for is folks that are committed to learning and self-improvement. We look for this throughout the application. If you've continued to do this since your undergraduate degree, again, thinking back to the previous slide, 47% of our class that just graduated had a previous advanced degree. And so folks that are always looking to continue learning and growing is really important. And those are the folks that we want in the Sloan Fellows program. So I want to talk a little bit about our evaluation process and the timeline for that for our Sloan Fellows program. We have 2 application deadlines, which I'll talk about in a few slides, and we begin reviewing all applications the day after the deadline. All applications are reviewed by our professionally trained admissions committee, so we do not have any students or alumni involved in our evaluation process. As we're reviewing applications, and again, thinking back to the previous slide, who is the ideal candidate? We're looking for evidence of all of those pieces, in addition to past successes, your demonstrated success, and leadership skills. So we'll look at things like the impact of your work that you've had within the past few years. We'll look at your previous academics. If you provide any test scores, those can all demonstrate your past successes. We'll also look for evidence of leadership skills. So finding ways to figure out how well you work in teams, how do you solve problems, how do you communicate and adapt to change. So we'll be looking at all of your application materials, and if invited to interview, in an interview, dig deeper into these questions to learn a little bit more about your leadership skills and what that could contribute to the Sloan Fellows program. And the last piece, we're evaluating candidates for general management experience. In a bit, we'll go through every single application component and talk about the general management experience question in some more detail, but that's definitely something we look for throughout the evaluation process, as it's a key pillar of the Sloan Fellows program. This is a high-level overview of the timeline for round 1. So we hope you all are getting started on your applications now and applying for our round 1 deadline, which is on Monday, October 20th. Following that, immediately the next day, we'll begin reviewing all applications, and we'll take a couple weeks to review applications. By November 4th, if you submit your application for the round 1 deadline, you'll have an update from us, at which point you may be invited to interview or receive another update on your application. From there, we'll have a few weeks of interviews starting on November 10th, with final decisions for round 1 being released on December 12th. We really strongly encourage international applicants to apply by this round 1 deadline to allow ample time for the various onboarding processes. And one thing I just want to note, you are welcome to submit your application on the day of the deadline. We ask that if you are submitting all of your final materials, then please have some patience with the system. It can sometimes slow down with many people uploading their videos and uploading their different application components all at the same time. So now we are going to kind of get into the heart of today's presentation and talk about all of the application components. I'll provide some tips on completing each of them, and then we'll get to any questions that you all have. So the Sloan Fellows MBA application requires the following application components. You'll provide a cover letter, a resume, a video statement, a second video question, 1 letter of recommendation, 2 additional references, an organizational chart, transcripts, 2 professional short answer questions. Test scores are optional, and then you'll respond to the question, the world that shaped you. Like I said before, we have 2 application deadlines, the first one being October 20th, and then we have a second application deadline in late January, on January 26th. We invite you to apply when you feel that your application is at its strongest. So now let's talk about each of the application components in some more detail. The first one is the cover letter. The prompt for this is to submit a cover letter seeking a place in the MIT Sloan Fellows MBA program. You have 300 words or less to submit in this cover letter. A couple things as you are kind of approaching your cover letter and deciding what to put in it. This is really the place for you to sell yourself and talk a little bit about why MIT Sloan. As you think about all of the application components, it's really helpful when you're able to provide specific examples and details that really showcase your past successes and your leadership skills. And so the cover letter is a great opportunity to provide either a recent professional or personal example that further demonstrates why you're a good match for the Sloan Fellows community, the Sloan Fellows program, and the Sloan community. One thing that's really important within the cover letter is that this is not the place to be focusing on your future goals. Within the Sloan Fellows application, there is a specific question focused on your future goals. So please use that space in the application to detail future goals. There is limited real estate across all of our application components, so it's really important that you are answering the prompt or question that's being posed for that specific application component. Please keep the future goals in the future goals question and leave this space to really sell yourself and talk about why you are a good fit for the MIT Sloan Fellows MBA program. The next application component is your resume. There are a few restrictions for the format of your resume. So we're asking for a 2-page maximum, Times New Roman font size 10, uploading either a Word or PDF document. And we ask that you structure this in reverse chronological order. The biggest tip for completing your resume is to make sure you're following those formatting requirements. There are just a couple of them, so please make sure that you follow those as requested. The next tip, making sure that it's easy to read and easy to follow. We want to be able to see your career progression and easily be able to follow that. And so making sure that you on your end have provided a concise story within your resume is really helpful. The next piece, oftentimes when you're writing a resume, you might be including your job responsibilities. We really want to see quantifiable accomplishments in this resume rather than your job responsibilities. So really highlighting the successes and the impact of your work and the various roles that you've had in your resume is really important. In the education section, you're welcome to provide any additional awards or scholarships or professional societies that you were involved in. For your work experience, please make sure that you're including your company name, title, again, results-oriented bullets that demonstrate your skill set that you would bring into the program, the dates of your experience. And then you're welcome to provide additional information outside of your professional and academic experiences. We really want to get to know who you are as a whole person. And so if you're actively engaged in extracurricular activities, community service, if you have continued learning with any certifications, have any special skills you want to highlight, you can certainly use space on your resume to highlight that. Again, we're looking for who you are as a whole person, and so the professional and academic aspects are definitely important, but feel free to use a little space to provide additional detail about what you do outside of your professional work. The next application component is a video statement. The prompt for this is for you to introduce yourself to your future classmates. This is really a great place for you to share a little bit about who you are personally. We encourage you to let your personality shine. This can help put a little bit of color onto who you are and how you might show up in the Sloan classroom. And we really enjoy watching these videos and getting to know you more personally. So feel free to share whatever information you would like to introduce yourselves. I will note that these videos are not ever shown to your future classmates, so it is just for us on the admissions committee, but we're excited to get to know you through this video statement. A couple kind of tips as you're approaching the video statement. We're asking for you to provide a 60-second video statement. So you have kind of limited time to share whatever details you would like to. We encourage you to use your best judgment and be aware of your surroundings when you're recording your video. Some folks might record it outdoors or in a space where they might be doing one of their hobbies or engaging in one of their personal interests. Some folks might record it sitting at their computer. All of those are fine. Just make sure that we can see and hear you clearly, regardless of where you're taking your video. And again, show us your personality. We want to get to know the whole you. And so this is a great opportunity to share a little bit more about that. We have a second video question that you'll also complete, and this is an opportunity to respond to a randomly generated open-ended prompt. A couple things to note with video question 2. As you first open the application, you'll notice that it's not immediately available. You'll have to complete some components of the application before you're able to view the video question 2 tab in the application. Once you are able to view it, a couple things to note as well. You will have to test your video and your microphone, and you'll go through that series of tests and have to click an additional checkbox saying you're ready to go and ready to record your answer. So please use the test environment to feel comfortable with the software where your question will be prompted, where it will show the time that you have to record or if it's recording, and really ensure that your video and microphone are ready to go for the recording. So please use the test environment so that you are comfortable before you start recording, because you do only have the one chance to record this video. The video that is recorded is the one that will be uploaded into your application, so you do just have the one chance. When you decide that you're ready to record your question, you'll go through the test environment and click the checkbox saying you're ready, at which point your question will appear and you'll have 10 seconds to prepare for this question and 60 seconds to record your response. There is no advanced preparation that's needed for these questions. They're all about your experiences, and so there are no right or wrong answers. We're really looking at these videos to assess how you think on your feet and communicate authentically. It's a really good indicator of how you might show up in the various Sloan classrooms. So really, you can approach it like you would a conversation or how you might be in the mindset for an interview question. But again, it's all about your experiences. An example of a question you might see is to tell us about your proudest accomplishment. So we hope you have fun recording these videos and sharing a little bit more based on the question that you're prompted with. But again, there is only the one chance to record this video, and the video that is recorded is what will be in your application. The next component is your recommendation letter. We require one letter of recommendation letter and just one letter of recommendation. As you're thinking about who to ask to be your recommender, we recommend that you give whoever you're asking at least 6 weeks in advance of the application deadline so that they have ample time to really write a robust letter that answers the questions that we're asking of them. Ideally, this is coming from a manager or supervisor who can really speak to the impact of your work and again, provide specific detailed examples of your experiences. One really important thing is that we ask that you do not write the letter for your recommender. This should come from their authentic voice based on their experiences with you. And as you think about who can be the person to write your letter of recommendation, on the right-hand side of the screen, you'll see the 6 questions that we're asking a recommender to answer. So we'll just read through them quickly. We want to know how long and in what capacity the recommender has known you as the applicant. We want to know how the recommender sees the applicant stand out from others in a similar capacity. We're looking for a specific example of the applicant's impact on a person, group, or organization. We're looking for an example of how the applicant interacts with other people. Space to tell us anything else that they think we should know about the applicant, and then detailing a time that they gave you constructive feedback and what you did with the constructive feedback. So really think critically about who can answer these questions and provide in-depth responses to all of them. Is really important and helps us in the admissions process. For Sloan Fellows, oftentimes you might be leading organizations. And so you might be wondering who to ask to be a recommender if you don't have anyone that you're reporting to directly. Sometimes folks might ask clients or mentors that they work with closely if they are leading their organizations, But again, thinking critically about who can provide these examples and details to these questions is who you should ask to be your recommender. For folks working in family businesses, please do not have your recommender be a family member. In addition to the letter of recommendation, you'll also provide 2 additional references. And so these are similar to a recommender, where they should be able to speak about your professional experiences and professional aptitude. The questions that we would ask a reference are very similar to what we ask a recommender. And one thing to note with the additional references is that we may or may not contact them during the admissions process. If we are looking to get additional data and information on your candidacy, we will contact them to schedule a time that works for both parties. And so please make sure that you have notified your references if they will be included in your application. And oftentimes we get questions from applicants who have a couple people they might want to write letters of recommendation. As you approach our application, again, we just have 1 letter of recommendation that is required and allowed. And so as you think about who else can speak to your professional aptitude, pick the person that can really provide those specific examples in a recommendation letter, and then other folks that might still be able to speak about your professional aptitude can be listed as the 2 additional references. The next component of the application is the organizational chart. And for our Sloan Fellows application, I would say this is really a great visual representation of the general management experience that's hopefully highlighted throughout your entire application. We really use this as a visual to understand your role within your greater organization, really defining where your sphere of influence is and the relationships that you work with in a day-to-day basis. We want to know who you're working with to influence their decisions and who you're working with to kind of develop more professionally and folks that may be reporting to you. As you complete your organizational chart, if you're working for a large organization, you may just include your function. Some organizations, if you have 20 folks, you'll be able to include everyone on your organizational chart, but really just using your best judgment to showcase all of those relationships that you're able to. Feel free to highlight any indirect reports as well in the organizational chart. Those are helpful to see. We ask that you circle yourself in red so that it's very clear where you sit in the organizational chart. And one key thing, as you're completing the application, all of the components should align. So thinking back to the resume, whatever you list as your current employment should match what you upload in the employment section of the application, and that should match what your organizational chart is. It should be from your current organization. So keeping that in mind. And a couple things as well within the organizational chart, you might be able to highlight your recommender or your references. And so finding an easy way to point that out for us is really helpful. In some cases, you may be able to highlight the past roles that you had in your organization to show your career progression. That's helpful to see as well. And so again, this is just a visual representation that can further highlight those relationships. And you will look at it in conjunction with all of your other application materials to kind of see the impact of your work and where your sphere of influence has been in general management. The next component we'll talk about are test scores. For the Sloan Fellows application, they are completely optional. If you choose to submit a test score, you can submit a GMAT, Focus or 10th edition, GRE scores, executive assessment scores, in-person and remote options are all accepted. So if you've taken a test and you would like to provide the score, you're welcome to. Again, it is an optional component. Oftentimes we get questions about when it's best to provide a test score. I think in looking at our class profile, you can find a way to kind of benchmark yourself and where you fall in that class profile based on test scores. And we encourage, if you have a competitive test score, to upload it as an additional data point. But again, it's up to you and your judgment if you would like to provide a test score or not. If a test score is provided, it will be considered in the application. The next component of the application are your academic records and relevant coursework section. So we ask that you provide transcripts from all institutions that you have attended or are currently attending. If your transcripts are in another language, you'll also provide a certified translation in English. There is also space for you to upload additional non-degree coursework or professional certifications. So please use that space to show how you've continued learning since your undergraduate degrees. When we're looking at these application materials, we're really looking for your academic aptitude. So again, thinking about how we are evaluating candidates, we're looking for your demonstrated successes professionally and academically, and your leadership skills. And so these components really help us see your past successes in an academic environment, and really help us understand your mastery of a subject area that you chose to study. We're really looking for your comfort with quantitative work. We don't have any prerequisite courses required for the Sloan Fellows MBA, but there is a section where you'll detail what quantitative, if any, courses you've previously taken. This is helpful for us to kind of gauge how you would perform in the Sloan Fellows core classes in addition to the elective offerings. And again, like I noted, we really like to see a sense of intellectual curiosity and that you're committed to continuous learning. And so if you've taken additional courses or certifications or training, please use the space to highlight those trainings or certifications for us. The next component of the application are professional questions. So you have 2 professional questions that you'll respond to in 200 words or fewer. The first one is the space where you'll tell us about your immediate and long-term professional objectives and how the Sloan Fellows MBA will help you achieve them. So again, if you think back to what we were talking about with the cover letter, I said that's not the space for future goals. This specific professional question is where you'll detail those future goals for us. The second question is where you'll detail your general management experience, and really defining what those experiences are. Oftentimes, it will show up in various places throughout your application, in addition to this area that you explicitly detail your general management experience. These questions are limited to just words, 200 words or less, so keep that in mind. And then the last application component is the world that shaped you. We're really excited to learn more about how the world that you come from has shaped who you are today. This question, you have 250 words or less to tell us about that. And this is a really great opportunity to expand on your background. So again, I've said this a few times, but we're really looking forward to getting to know who you are as a whole person. And this can really provide that opportunity to expand upon that. Again, this question is limited to words only, so 250 words or less, and it's a great opportunity for you to just share more about what makes you you. So I have a couple kind of overall admissions tips as you're thinking about the application and getting started with it. The first one is to follow directions. You'll notice throughout our application there are limited word counts or seconds on your videos or page counts, or we're asking for specific formats of materials. Make sure you follow those directions. We've very intentionally created the application, and so please, we're really looking for you to follow the directions as intended. The next thing I want to say is that we're really looking for reasons to admit you. So throughout the application, we're really looking for those data points to showcase your demonstrated successes and your leadership skills and what that would contribute to the Sloan community. So find the ways and use the real estate to really highlight those experiences and what you would bring into the Sloan community. Think of us as your advocate, so really help us gather that data that we need to move you along in the admissions process. After you submit your application, the first step would be giving us enough data and information that we're excited and want to learn more about your experiences through an interview. From there, it would be to admission. So really helping us help you. We encourage you to be yourselves. We want to get to know who you are. So really share your authentic voice throughout the application. Find the spaces to share both personal and professional aspects to your candidacy and what makes you you, and really find those opportunities throughout the application. And then the last piece is applying early whenever your application is fully ready to go. Again, we encourage international applicants to apply by the round one deadline if you are able to allow ample time for the onboarding processes. But if your application is ready to go in round one, we certainly encourage you to apply for round one. We do have 2 application deadlines in the event that your application is not ready for October 20th. So I know my colleagues have been answering a lot of questions virtually for you all, but we have some time to answer some questions live. So I invite my colleague Allie to join me for any other questions that we have in the Q&A.
Awesome. Thank you, Maddie. Yeah, we got some great questions in the Q&A, but a couple of things that popped up a little consistently, I think are going to be great to answer live. Could you talk a bit about any recommendations you have for reapplicants? How can they best submit their application this year?
Yeah, that's a really good question. We have reapplicants every year who are successful in their reapplication. And a couple tips as you're approaching the application process as a reapplicant. Know that we still have your previous application and all the information that you submitted the year prior. And so it's really important for you to provide as much new information and details and examples in your new application as possible. We'll look at both your previous application and your current one at the same time. And so we're really looking for those new details. What has changed in the past year since you applied? Finding new examples to highlight on your resume, and really sharing the impact of your work within the past year is really important for reapplicants. Reapplicants also have a dedicated question where you'll highlight or provide a summary of what has changed since you last applied. And so that's a great opportunity to kind of summarize everything that has happened and that is shared throughout your application materials for the admissions committee. So again, you should provide all new materials, provide as much new information as possible throughout the application, new examples and new details, so that we can review that in conjunction with your previous application.
Awesome. Thank you. There were a couple of questions about the org chart. So I'm wondering if you give some more detail on some scenarios.
Mhm.
Specifically, if someone is maybe doing some freelance work or is an entrepreneur, what can they submit? And then also, if someone has an employer that maybe has some confidentiality guidelines to follow, what would someone do in those situations?
Yeah, absolutely. I will note briefly that we have a sample org chart on our website, so feel free to take a look at that. And that showcases that many of the names of folks are redacted. We just show titles of many of the folks on the org chart. So provide as much information as you're able to, but if your organization does have some confidentiality concerns or information cannot be shared more broadly, you are welcome to redact whatever information cannot be shared with us. For folks that may have be doing freelance work or consultants, we're again looking for an organizational chart from your current work. And so you might highlight a current project that you're working on or an engagement that you're involved with and highlighting those relationships, even if it's outside of your organization. If you're working directly with a client, you might highlight their organizational chart and how you relate to those roles. And so really highlighting your current work and what you're doing and showcasing those relationships is what's most important. And for some, it might look slightly different than others, but that's what we would recommend as you approach the organizational chart.
Awesome. Thanks. Um, Another question we got was about how we look for managerial experience in the application. Does
Mhm.
someone have to have direct reports in order to have that managerial or leadership experience shown? How do we evaluate that?
Yeah, that's a great question. It is not a requirement of the Sloan Fellows MBA to have direct reports. Most times, our applicants do have direct reports or indirect reports that they're working with. I think what's most important is what the experiences are that you're having in the leadership. So if you're leading a specific organization or leading specific teams, maybe you're not leading individuals in a direct way, but you have responsibility for strategy or budget of a function or of an organization. That's the experience that we're looking for, that general management experience where you have kind of large scale impact on an organization or a function. And oftentimes that means that you have direct reports, but sometimes you don't, and that is perfectly fine. In your organizational chart and the employment section, you'll be able to detail how many direct reports that you have. So if you have any, highlighting them for us. If not, that's perfectly fine. And we'll really use the organizational chart to see those relationships that you have, whether you have direct reports or not.
Makes sense. Thanks. Um, Along similar lines, how do we look for the words used before were quant comfortable? What exactly does that mean, and how would one demonstrate that if not including GMAT or GRE scores? What are some other ways they would be able to show that on their application?
Yeah, that's a great question. If you look on our website, we have a few different relevant courses that we ask you to detail in the application. Things like if you've taken a calculus course or a statistics course. And so this is one of the ways that we can kind of determine your level of comfort with quantitative work, if you've previously done any and how you performed in those classes. Oftentimes, students might not have taken any of those classes, or it's been many years since they were in those classes. And so there are a variety of other ways that you can demonstrate your comfort with quant work outside of the relevant coursework section. One of the ways is if you've taken any additional certifications, done any professional trainings or non-degree coursework, there's space in the application to detail any of those. Sometimes we might have students who maybe complete MBA math as they're preparing for an application just to refresh themselves on those topics. You're welcome to provide details of courses like MBA math in that section of the application. Outside of that, the work that you're doing may also be quantitative. You may have aspects of your work that are quantitative. And so if you highlight those on your resume, that's helpful for us to see. We're really just looking for evidence that you're prepared to be successful in the classroom. And that can show up in a variety of places. The previous academics that you've done, any non-degree coursework, your professional work that you've done. And so if you don't have specific courses, just making sure that it's shown somewhere in your application materials, your ability to be comfortable with quantitative coursework to help us kind of identify if you're prepared for the rigor of the program.
Sounds great. Just gonna keep monitoring this chat for a little bit here, looking for some other themes that have popped up.
Mhm.
This is just like a general resume formatting question. Should like the formatting that we include on the application be followed directly? Is there any room to include an intro paragraph at the beginning? What are your suggestions for formatting that resume?
Yeah, that's a great question. We only have a few requirements for formatting: size 10, Times New Roman font, 2-page maximum, Word or PDF document, reverse chronological order. So if you want to include a little introduction paragraph in your resume, you're more than welcome to. Just make sure that you're following all of those other formatting requirements and keeping it to a maximum of 2 pages. You're welcome to include that. But at a minimum, we're looking for you to include your academic history, your employment history, and then space for any additional information you want to share about extracurriculars or community organizations that you're involved in.
Is there any place on the application where students should apply for scholarships or fellowships? How does that work for Sloan Fellows?
Yeah, that's a great question. Within our application, we have a funding page where you'll read a little bit about what opportunities are available and what resources are available. Um, for the Sloan Fellows application, you'll indicate if you are or are not interested in being considered for a fellowship. All of the fellowships that are awarded for Sloan Fellows are merit-based, and it's based off of everything that's included in your application. So you just check a checkbox within the application. But I will say all admitted applicants are automatically considered for the merit-based fellowships. And then if you're interested in considering other opportunities, please use the resources that are linked within our application to websites like the Sloan Student Funding website to explore other opportunities.
I know we are nearing the end of our time here. I think we covered just about everything that I'm seeing in the Q&A function. Of course, if we missed your question, we have the email up there, so please don't hesitate to reach out. But I think that'll be it for the Q&A.
Awesome. Thanks, Allie.
All right.
And thank you everyone for joining us for today's application tips webinar. Like Allie said, if you have any additional questions, feel free to email us at sfmbaadmissions.mitsloan@mit.edu. We're excited to answer any questions that you have throughout the process and get to know you through the admissions process. Again, we thank you all for joining us today, and we look forward to reviewing your applications in a few months.